Okay, we will return from closed session. Would the clerk please call the roll to reestablish a quorum?
Bruins? Present. Carr? Here. Frost? Here. Guerra?
Here.
Harris?
Here.
Hume?
Here.
Lee?
Here.
McGarvey?
Here.
Moran?
Here.
Natoli? Here. Orozco? Peters? Here. Cerna?
Here.
Villegas? Warren? And Kennedy.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there anything to report out from closed session?
No, there's no final action. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
For your consent items 1 through 4, acting as the Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District, district consent matters.
Are there any questions? All right, we have a motion from Director Natoli, second from Director Villegas. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Item number 5, comments from the public on issues not on the posted agenda.
Got no cards. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the board at this time on an item that's not on the agenda? Thank you.
Acting as your Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District, district separate matters, item number 6, Sims Ranch and Nicholas Dairy repurposing project budget and education program update.
Good morning, Chair and board members. I'm going to just make a few brief words and then turn it over. We have a couple of speakers today on this item. We've learned a lot since the last time that we updated your board on this project, both the Nicholas Dairy and Sims Ranch properties. From a financial perspective, it has been challenging. It's costly to make improvements on a historical structure, and then also the bidding climate has changed rapidly, and so we're working hard on those challenges. We've also really kind of come to the realization and understanding that we've been deferring some of these costs for a very long time to preserve these properties, and so it's now time to do something to make sure that we do preserve the properties. On the educational front, we're really also discovering this is quite a kind of a hidden gem in terms of the value from an educational perspective that these properties bring. And the vision for this program is really coming into focus now. And Patty Sapula is going to talk to you a little bit. She's from the Elk Grove School District about the educational program to give you a sense of what we're going to be doing with these properties. So Patty will start off the presentation talking about the educational part, and then the second part will be Jason Lofton, who is responsible for getting the repairs and improvements done, and so he'll talk about those in some detail. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Patty.
Good morning. I'm Patty Sapula, the project coordinator for the education programs. And I just want to make sure the clicker is working. It is. Okay. I'm here to talk to you today about the progress of the educational program development for Nicholas Dairy. Before we were able to work on developing education programs, we needed to come up with a branding and a name to sort of guide our decision making. So we started by creating a vision, you see that on your screen, as well as a tagline to go with it. From there we created a name, Project AWE. AWE is an acronym. It stands for Agriculture, Water, Energy, and the Environment, and that will be the focus of all of our education programs. Next, we had high school graphic arts academies compete to design a logo, and you see that logo on your screen as well to represent our branding. We're also creating a website, projectawe.net, that will advertise our programs and give the public information about what it is we're doing. From our vision, we decided to create some goals, and our 4 goals, first being restore and renovating the structures and landscape of Nicholas Dairy. Jason Lofton will be speaking about those in a few moments. Partner with the community, chronicle local and Nicholas family history, and then provide educational opportunities. Those educational opportunities will address 3 diverse groups of stakeholders. First, the community. Second, secondary or high school students, and finally, elementary school students. For the community, we're designing a lot of exhibits and museums interactive and demonstration areas such as gardening, orchards, and composting, and then allowing meeting space. A lot of community groups have expressed interest in using our site for things like tree pruning demonstrations and meeting groups for 4-H. For secondary students, we've been providing opportunities for work-based learning and project-based learning, and also opportunities to do service or community projects and demonstrate leadership. And then for elementary school students, we're creating interactive field trips and museums, writing curriculum, and we're developing teacher trainings. Our elementary curriculum program involves at least 5 separate units. Each focuses on a different area of agriculture. Each contains a standard-based curriculum, a teacher training, an activity kit, and a specialized interactive field trip. There's a lot of interest already in these programs. We have over 30 elementary school teachers that have volunteered to serve as pilot teachers. They will test drive our curriculum and our field trips and then provide feedback so we can revamp, revise, and improve it for the coming years. We plan on rolling out 2 or 3 of these programs each year until they're all unveiled, and then opening up our service area to the larger regional SAN district. Okay, and there we go. I want to take you sort of on a tour of the property so that you can see how the renovations will impact the educational programs. There are 4 major structures on the property that we will use for the educational programs. I'm going to discuss 3 of them in great length in the coming slides, but I want to call your attention right now to the one on the bottom right corner, and that is a replica of the pig shed. This structure was not in the original renovation plans, but it has a tremendous amount of educational value. It can serve as a demonstration area and a sort of amphitheater for animal visits. The UC Davis Raptor Society has volunteered to bring raptors out when we have student visitors, as well as 4-H and FFA programs that will bring dairy animals out. And so this pig shed will serve as a place to store those animals, and with benches in front of them built by local Boy Scouts, we'll be able to have sort of a animal show area. Another Boy Scout has volunteered to actually do the renovations of the pig shed for us, since that was not in the scope of our development. This is our milk barn. It has newly been renovated in the exterior, and it's going to serve as the highlight of our 4th grade dairy program. The inside of the milk barn will be outfitted with exhibits such as those that you see here, including a fiberglass milkable cow. It will cover every aspect of dairying, from dairy careers to milk processing to what cows eat and what we do with all their manure. On the bottom left side, you see the original milking stanchions. These are what is responsible for giving Nicholas Dairy its historical significance. Following World War II, the Nicholas Dairy, under the management of Larry Nicholas, was the first dairy in the area to implement a stainless steel, walk-through, automated milking system. This catapulted the dairy from grade B status, which is a dairy that produces milk for butter and cheese, to grade A status, which is a dairy that produces drinking milk. It revolutionized the Sacramento Valley dairy industry. And so we want to honor that by turning those stanchions into exhibits showing how milking technology has changed from 1800 to the present day. Okay. The next building is the farmhouse. When it's fully renovated, it will be decorated to represent life in the early 1940s. Trained docents and exhibits will help visitors learn about this property, about the Nicholas family, and about life in a much simpler time. We have high school videography programs that are videotaping memorabilia and records from the family and also from local history, and they will also create virtual tours for any disabled visitors that we have. High school interior design and fashion academies are helping us with the decor of the house, and California State Parks has generously offered to donate furnishings and artifacts to display in the home. The Nicholas family has also given us many items from their family, their heirlooms, their photographs, and documents, even their tax records from 1907, that we will be able to display in the house. The bachelor's quarters to the rear of the house can serve as an office for an on-site coordinator, a group meeting space, an educational space for teachers, and even a break space for any docents that we have. This is the hen house building. It actually is comprised of 3 rooms. The front room was a workshop, and we want to furnish it as it looked in the 1940s. Through the exhibits we have there and the hands-on activities students will do when they visit, we will be honoring Larry Nicholas, who was known for his innovation. He was the second-generation dairy farmer, or dairy manager, excuse me. I want students to learn the long-forgotten values of recycling, repurposing, and repairing, and that's what went on in that workshop. The middle room was actually a storeroom, and we're going to turn it into an amphitheater. We have a Boy Scout who is building benches for student seating. We'll have a video screen in there, and around the perimeter of the room, we will have exhibits that highlight the local wildlife, so students learn that we have to coexist with wildlife when we build a farm. UC Davis Raptor Society and other sponsors are helping us outfit the exhibits for that space. And then the final room was the actual hen house. We already have had some Boy Scouts through Eagle projects that have made major improvements to that part of the structure. They have built an interior viewing wall that will allow chickens to be on one side of the wall and students on the other. They've also built an outdoor chicken run so that chickens can be viewed both indoors and out. We will be adding some exhibits to the space to finish it off. And then, the best news of all, is a local charter high school is going to expand its poultry program by maintaining chickens on our site. And this helps, they serve continuation disadvantaged youth, so it's going to help them as well as, of course, help us. And then we're making some improvements to the grounds as well. We're blending history with present day practice. We'll have outdoor exhibits, such as the one you see on the top left corner and then the bottom right corner, that will highlight sustainability and innovation. I've written grants to fund a lot of these exhibits. We're also going to have an interactive compost exhibit, a smokehouse replica, and a bullpen, all 3 of which will be built by local Boy Scouts. We have kitchen and pollinator gardens going in, as well as ADA accessible planting beds that were being built by local Girl Scouts. Visiting students will get to garden, compost, and work in the orchard to truly experience the growing process. Beautiful interactive exhibits will complement these areas, and this area will serve as the basis for our 3rd grade pollinator program, our 5th grade farm to fork program, and our younger student tree program. The community can benefit from these areas as well, as they can be used for demonstration gardening and pruning. Additionally, another charter school is planting and maintaining farm plots on the site. These will add to the educational value. They'll help us have that farm feel, and they also provide their disadvantaged youth with an opportunity to actually farm in the middle of the urban neighborhood. Also on the grounds, we have plenty of room for open space activities for our students, including roping these sawhorse dummies. These dummies were designed and built by the students at a continuation high school in Elk Grove. We also have plenty of places for lunch. Picnic tables are being designed and built by a local Boy Scout. And the benches you see on the bottom of your screen, they were designed by students in an Elk Grove Construction Academy. We'll have gardens adorning the area as well, and both hand washing and produce washing stations that will be funded by a local grant. Okay. Admittedly, I've created a pretty extensive vision for this property, but as an educator for almost 30 years, I'm very well aware of the need to stretch a dollar, and I also understand the power within the community. For this reason, I've actively sought additional funding through community partnerships, grants, donations, and sponsors to advance this vision. The current partners span the breadth of the community. We have everything from business representatives, government agencies, nonprofits, educational institutions, and even individuals. Many of their logos are featured here, though unfortunately they did not all fit on the screen. Each has provided resources, advice, curriculum, labor, or funding to sponsor our exhibits and renovations. This has saved us tens of thousands of dollars. It's also built community interest in the sustainability of these education programs. Through partnering with high school career tech academies, we've also saved thousands of dollars receiving cost-saving services, but at the same time, we've created educational opportunities for those high school students. However, we still need to broaden the scope of the initial project in order to maximize the educational value and fully use the property's potential. My colleague Jason Lofton will be introducing some information on the current and planned renovations to help with that. And I'd like to thank you. It's been my pleasure to work on this project. It's truly a dream job for any educator. We're well on our way to creating a community treasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Are there any questions of this speaker, or we can hear the complete presentation probably, and then we'll have questions.
Got a quick question, Mr. Chair. Which elementary schools will this be rolled out?
We're going to pilot with the Elk Grove Unified School District for the first 2 years till we've tested all of our programs, and then we'll be opening it up to all the schools that are within the regional sand service districts.
Oh, I see. Any particular elementary schools in Elk Grove Unified?
In Elk Grove Unified School District, right now we have about 12 different schools interested in piloting. We have made sure that we've hit at least one school from all 9 of their geographic regions. So as far as specific schools, I can tell you Marion Mix, Elk Grove Elementary. I mean, we have one from every area.
I'd be interested in that list if you can forward it to me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Director Orozco, would you like to question now or wait till the end?
Yeah, just
Sorry.
before you sit down, thank you. I was interested in a little bit more information about the Disadvantaged Youth Program you'd mentioned with respect to the poultry. Will the participants be raising chickens, or will they be expanding their experience to, say, selling eggs or getting any other type of experience outside of just the supervision of the chickens?
Did you say braising the chickens?
That does sound good. Raising.
That's funny. Currently, I believe they do raise poultry, and that has been their goal, is to raise poultry in our hen house. But expanding that into a business so that they get some entrepreneurship experience, either selling eggs, I'm not sure. That potential is definitely there. We've talked about even the potential of doing a pumpkin patch or something else on the property that allows students to get some entrepreneurship. And I know that in Elk Grove we do have several business management academies that are interested in opportunities we may have to offer. So down the line that may occur. Right now I believe it's just to raise the poultry.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Jason Lofton. I'm a senior civil engineer in policy and planning at Regional Sand. And during my portion of the presentation, I'll give you some background on the project itself. I'll give you an update on the construction status. We'll talk about the need for additional improvements at the site. And then finally, we'll talk about budget. Sims Ranch and Nicholas Dairy are owned by Regional Sand. They are in our Bufferlands property around the wastewater treatment plant. In this aerial photo, you can see that Nicholas Dairy is at the southern edge of our property near the new Dwight Road entrance. And Sims Ranch is on the eastern edge of our property off of Franklin Boulevard near the Sims Road entrance. As Patty mentioned, both of these properties are historically significant. Your board about 2 years ago approved a $1.35 million budget to make improvements to both properties. Of that $1.35 million, Supervisor Natoli pledged $100,000 from his county funds. The direction you gave staff was to stabilize the 8 structures at Sims Ranch. And then at Nicholas Dairy, the direction was to stabilize those 3 structures and make additional improvements to make the site more attractive to potential partners. Your board also provided funding for the education program, which you just heard the update on. It's now called Project AW. And finally, we started construction very early this year at Nicholas Dairy. I'll start with the Nicholas Dairy construction update, but I just want to remind you, the goal here was to stabilize the structures, but also take it a step further to make additional improvements to the site to make it more usable. The first thing we did was evaluate the existing septic system. It was an old residential septic system. It hadn't been used in over a decade and it was undersized. So we abandoned that septic system and had a new commercial system installed that meets current code and meets all of our needs from when we have visitors visit the site. That project was finished this summer. The next item we began working on was the milk barn itself. These pictures show the milk barn after we did lead paint abatement and before Raymond Brothers Construction, which is the contractor doing the work, began making the structural repairs. They're almost done now. These photos show the same barn. There's a few punch list items remaining, but there was a significant amount of structural repairs that needed to happen. We had the lead paint abatement. And numerous doors needed to be repaired or rebuilt completely, and the same thing with windows. Again, they're almost done with this work, though. We're currently working on the Nicholas House repairs. When we're finished with that, we'll have a completely rebuilt front porch. We've had 9 windows custom built to match exactly the historic windows. Those are now in. We will be doing masonry repairs, a significant amount of wood repair and painting, as well as ADA improvements. Most of these, or all of these improvements are exterior only though. Here's a picture from a couple weeks ago. The picture on the left shows the front porch enclosure being demolished. That enclosure was not original to the house. It was added in the 1950s. And we wanted to return it to its original look from the 1940s, or sorry, early 1900s. The picture on the right shows the enclosure completely removed and the contractors digging the footings for the new porch. Just to give you an idea of what it will look like, this is a picture from the 1940s of the Nicholas House, and that's what it'll look like when we're done. We also need restroom facilities if we're going to have visitors to the site, and we are currently building a new restroom facility. You can see the photos here. When it's done, it will look like the Nicholas House. We'll have the same siding, the same color scheme. The front of it will look like the front porch. In short, it'll look like it belongs on the site, but it'll be fully functional and modern. The next item we'll be working on is the landscaping at Nicholas Dairy. Our original scope included very minor improvements, things like ADA paths, some turf. We hope to have enough funding for a small orchard, and then a lot of bark, just as ground cover. Again, we wanted to make minimal improvements to help visitors have the same vision we have of the site. However, since the education program has came on board, they've identified many more needs through the landscaping. So we've expanded that scope a bit. We just received bids. The low bid was a little over $220,000, and we expect to start construction soon on that. The next structure we plan to work on but haven't begun yet is the Nicholas Chicken Coop and Workshop. Our original budget for this was just to stabilize the structure. We didn't envision anybody entering it or using it. If we want to have people use this structure, we would need to do additional structural upgrades and electrical upgrades, which were not in our original budget. Now I'll switch to Sims Ranch. Again, the direction here was just to stabilize the 8 structures there to keep them from deteriorating further. Our budget for that was a little over $270,000. We went out to bid this summer for that work, and we received 1 bid, which was almost double that. We did not award it because we didn't have budget. We did, however, look at the bid, and we realized that most of the high-cost items were related to hazardous material, things like lead paint, asbestos, and mold. So our plan now is to remove that scope from the stabilizing scope of work and award it to a specialty contractor. Hopefully that will reduce the cost. From there, if we have additional funding, we'll start stabilizing the structures, but it's likely we won't be able to address all 8 structures with the $270,000.
Director Harris has a question. Okay.
This slide summarizes some unexpected costs and the need for additional improvements. Lead paint was an issue at Nicholas Dairy. It cost $40,000 just to abate the lead paint at the milk barn. The house itself also has lead paint, so the Painting that requires some preparation. That'll be $20,000 more. There were some change orders at the milk barn, significant amount of rot that we would not have been able to see until we removed and opened walls. Those change orders were about $25,000. I mentioned in the landscaping, the education program has a lot of additional needs that we didn't foresee when we included that in the budget originally. There's also a desire to have electrical improvements at all 3 structures at Nicholas Dairy. And then also the Nicholas home, there's a desire to have the inside accessible and usable, as Patty mentioned in her presentation. And finally, the hazardous materials at Sims Ranch caused the one bid we received to be significantly higher. Taking all those into consideration, we are requesting a new project budget of $2.5 million. The original budget was $1.35 million. With this budget, we'll be able to address all the hazardous material adequately, fully stabilize all 8 structures at Sims Ranch, and make Nicholas Dairy more usable for the education program. There is a line item in here for a contingency and reserve. That will address all the change orders that we will probably see when we start opening walls. Also, it allows us to have a little extra cushion to make improvements that the education program may identify once they start having field trips. I will point out there's a consultant line item of $100,000. The original budget had that at $200,000. We're doing most of the design in-house, and so we were able to reduce that line item. And then the other expenses is for CEQA, permitting, inspections, and drafting services. And that brings the total up to $2.5 million. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Director Harris.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to say that the educational opportunities here are rich, and I really like the way that's going. But I want to give you a little background. Not only have I worked on a dairy when I was a young man, but I'm a general contractor. I worked in Mendocino County for 7 years, and I jacked up bunches of houses in conditions similar to Nicholas Home and Dairy. These costs are absolutely out of line, in my opinion. I'm actually shocked. It makes me want to hang up my hat as a council member and put my nail bags on, because I think I do very well working for Regional Sand. And I say that not, I don't mean to rain on your parade, but I've done so much of this for 35 years that I find these costs are tremendously exorbitant, and I can't support doubling the cost of this project. I can't see it. And Prabhakar, I'd be happy to go out there and walk around with you and tell you what it would cost in the private sector to get these houses repaired, and it's certainly not in line with the budget that you've presented.
Yeah. To respond to that, you're absolutely right. When we look at these numbers, our jaws drop. The issue we're looking at is, number one, it's a public contracting that we have to follow. Before we started this, we tried hard to look for partners, such as the Elk Grove Historical Society, someone that can do things more inexpensively than we could. Because of the constraints we have, the public contract code that we have to use and abide by the contracting code. And the proof is in the pudding, in the sense that we actually put these projects out to bid. They were coming ahead of, you saw there's one that's twice the thing. Now, there are some of the projects nobody even wanted to bid. They actually didn't want to bid these projects in spite of us reaching out. And even when we got a bid, it's very high. We're sort of stuck in a way that your hands are roughly tied. If you really want to have these structures to be protected and preserved, really the opportunity, the way that we're doing is the only way we could think of.
I understand all that, Prabhakar, but what that tells me is that you're not in the market that you need. Contractors are in very short supply right now, and they're kind of writing their own ticket. Perhaps the way you might think about this is to wait until the market comes into line with what your needs are. We're headed towards, a downturn. Everybody acknowledges that at some point things are going to cool off. In fact, we're showing signs already. When things are too costly, don't pay for them. Is what I would say. there will come a point at which contractors will bid on this. If you're getting only one bid and people are hesitant to take the work because there's an abundance of better work out there, then sometimes you have to just wait till the market conditions suit your needs. That's my suggestion. You can stabilize the buildings, certainly, make sure they're not going to fall over. But I really have to reiterate, I have jacked up a bunch of old houses, put foundations under them, rebuilt porches, mitigated lead and asbestos and all of that. And, for $1.35 million, I could have done this job and come out whistling Dixie.
Just to give you an extra example, the painting of the Nicholas Dairy house, when we bid that project, was $52,000. We couldn't stomach that cost, just the external paint. It's a two-tone paint, really just a white for the all, and then you got the eaves with the green color.
Yeah.
And we went again, we spent 2 months bidding it. The cheapest we could get was $32,000 or some such number. That's it. So you're essentially, in a painting is something we have to do because there's kind of rots there, then we've got to protect that. So that's just more examples of the efforts that we're making. We're also doing it, a lot of the design in-house, so that we can shave some of the costs that originally we had absorbed in costs for the design and all of that. Again, that's just some examples.
Yeah, I understand completely what you're up against, but it says a lot when you can't get people to bid on a job. You're going to have to wait till people are a little bit hungrier.
Director Natoli.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first I want to just compliment the team that's been working on this, and I appreciate certainly Director Harris's expertise in construction. Certainly far exceeds any knowledge I have of it. But I want to just say that, as you heard Patty describe this morning, the work with our folks, both in-house, but certainly the external partners, it is really amazing. I had an opportunity to visit the site last week and to get a chance to see the physical undertaking there, but also to hear what you heard kind of summarized this morning about all the partners. And I think that, beyond the school district in which the actual facilities lie, but I think for school districts throughout the county and throughout this district, including West Sacramento and Yolo County, there's opportunities there to have not just a replica of a working dairy farm, but all the other attributes that go with community life, and the fact that some of the Nicholas family still reside in this community, and actually Diane Watkins, who you saw referenced there, lives in the town of Freeport, making available certainly family heirlooms to furnish the house. And I think that one of the things that was commented on here was, protect and preserve, but it's actually to use. And I think that, these properties both have been vacant for a number of years, were, rented out to folks who resided in the houses, but Dairy Barn hasn't been in use for many years, and again, just what happens with time and age and in some cases neglect, because once they were vacated, obviously, vandalism occurred to not to the houses as much as it did to some of the outbuildings. And then where we are today, and I think that obviously the climate we're in is one has been fairly frantic over the last couple of years, and I think with some of the disasters that have occurred in California, obviously the construction market may remain tight for a while. But I get the sense, and in all honesty, that our staff, again, who I've communicated with fairly frequently on this, have taken, certainly the budget piece of this very seriously. And as Prabhakar just described, when it came to painting, they said, no, we're not going to go for that amount. And I think to Jeff's point that, the appeal to contractors, that there's a real opportunity here to do something great and to have, at the end of the day, to have something we can all be proud of, but that it'll be used. And that, to me, is so key here. We have a major facility that has the utility that serves, hundreds of thousands of people in this region, drives the local economy when it comes to wastewater treatment, and, we've been a real leader. And here we have two of the places that were, historical farms and ranches that the sanitation district now occupies the land. And it was interesting to contrast the other day, just in brief, that standing there and looking at some of the work that's going on the Nicholas Ranch, and in the background were the cranes for the work that's going on with our plant expansion and modifications, the $1 billion+ project. And the solar field is in the intervening landscape and the wetlands to the west. And so, there's an opportunity to not only to use, but to provide learning opportunities and contribute opportunities. And the partners that are described here, the logos that were shown were only a portion of them. And so, again, recognizing obviously the ask here today is to, nearly double the budget, but I think that it reflects certainly upon the work that's being asked to be completed. And I think the interior of Nicholas House, for any of you that would want to take a tour, I know more than welcome to, but to see the outside renovation, but not to finish the inside so you can actually use it and show what that farmhouse looked like, but also the activities that can go on in there. And so, again, recognizing obviously it may be a big ask today. In my view, I think the work that Jason and Patty and all the folks with the regional sand team who are here in the audience today and others, to do it right. And I think for the long term, this will be something that this district, but this community will not only be proud of, but it'll be used in ways that will help, I think, advance the understanding about agriculture, the understanding about our environment, and will allow, I think, people of all ages to really participate in, the greatness that this really has the opportunity to be realized if we actually do this right. So I will just say I'm supportive of the expanded budget here this morning. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Peters.
Thank you. I first wanted to say that I think the schools have done great work on this and with the programs they're proposing. And but along the vein of everyone's a contractor on a project like this, I have to say I'm stunned at the budget doubling and offer a potential idea. I have been chair of the Leland Stanford Mansion Foundation for some time, and we did a $22 million restoration of a 150-year-old building that the former governor lived in. And we formed the foundation because the foundation took on some of the contractor work and could bid as a private sector entity and saved a lot of money. And in additionally, you have the Sand District, which is, you're really good at sanitation, but you're not an historic building restorer, and it's hard for you to know the potential pitfalls in restoring an historic building. Yeah, I'm glad the estimator that worked on the Sand District new project didn't estimate this project. Otherwise, we'd be at $4 billion. So I agree with Councilman Harris that I think we should wait until the bidding environment, stabilize the building and wait until the bidding environment changes, and maybe, get your team together and look at some potential changes, like, some of these groups that were listed in the presentation, forming a private foundation to bid the project, or some other idea.
In terms of reaching out to foundations, we have reached out to
Not reaching out to foundations.
Or starting
forming a foundation for the Nicholas Dairy project.
So we started out with the Elk Grove Historical Society, who happens to be in the neighboring community, to see if they would help us. And so for us to form, again, the thought is that if we finish the physical changes, our goal is always in the long term to move that over into the foundation, so we can contribute an ongoing maintenance so that they can run the programs. That's always the plan. At this stage, we could explore further in terms of foundation formation opportunities and see. And also, we probably would need to put on hold the educational program development for the time being, because there's an uncertainty if we want to wait for the contract environment to come back to normal. There's some pausing that we have to do in programming, and we would need to pick it up. So that's just a thought that I wanted to add to the discussion.
Okay, well, I think it's up to you to go back and think about some other ways you can come up with to provide a mechanism to have it cost less, like putting it off, forming a foundation, doing something else. I don't know what it might be. But I know you usually, in the last few years, we've been talking hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, so $2.5 million may not sound like very much, but it is a doubling of the budget. And I think that's what you have to keep in mind. Thank you.
Director McGarvey.
Yes, I know that this contracts right now is they're the ones that have the bid. It's like someone, if you're selling a house or buying a house, the seller sometimes is the one who's in charge. I'm looking at these pictures of the one that you're going to redo. It looks like to me, just for educational purposes, it would be worthwhile to maintain and to support what you already have, rather than letting it just go down. I've gone through some of the counties, like Lake County, for instance. There was a barn that we saw as we went by over the years, and it just finally just collapsed on its own. And some of the pictures in the one that we've seen just now, it looked like the same thing would happen. With a 5-year drought, and then almost a record amount of rain, and then maybe a regular amount, and then this year we've had, in my house I have a rain gauge. I got ½ an inch on the 3rd of October and nothing since, and it looks like we're heading into another drought just about. And all these things to me I think are going to be being detrimental to the buildings which we're trying to maintain and trying to survive, let's say, for the kids to see. I know it's up to the contractor right now, and you can bid for some, but I think we have to get more contractors in from out of the state, because look at all the things that are going on right now, especially with the wildfires, and all the other constructions are going to have to be done for those. I think to be able to get this done before people are saying, well, I'm not even going to try on that now because I have other bids over here I can put in for something else. I'd rather just spend the money now and get these things, the dairy farm and all the rest, saved, to save those, rather than just saying, well, we'll wait and then not be able to maintain it. I don't want to have to rebuild something brand new and say it's old.
As a matter of fact, one of the contractors that is working is from Nevada. He's actually come in, brought his staff from Nevada to come in and put them up in hotels and doing the work that way. That's how. Jason, what's the name of the contractor?
Raymond Brothers Construction.
That's what I've got. Thank you.
Okay, Director Hume.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of good comments have been made, so I'll try not to repeat them, except to say that, first of all, I appreciate all of the work that's been done with the programming aspect and really getting the end product in mind as the value of this restoration project. However, the points that have been made about the construction environment right now and the fact that it really is a bidder's market are spot on. Also, being in the industry, I can tell you that right now you have a hard time finding trades particularly. And as we saw after the Sonoma fire, it gets even exacerbated when you have a bunch of people who are looking to rebuild their properties. So even those who are available or who are marginal, they're going to be out of town working on where all the jobs are, which is likely to be up in the Paradise area, obviously. I like Supervisor Peters' idea of forming a foundation. We have the slide up here with all of those partners: the Farm Bureau, the Dairy Cares, others, Historical Society. And part of the reason behind that is this is an outcropping of necessity, I believe, which is keeping these structures from falling into disrepair and going away. However, none of what we're proposing to do does anything to actually further the educational goals or the service of the district. In other words, there's a lot of stuff about farming, a lot of stuff about dairy, a lot of stuff about animal husbandry, nothing about sanitation per se. And so I think it would be better in the realm of somebody who that is their focus. And so, as you say, Prabhakar, we can hand over for operations to some other entity. But I wholly support Director McGarvey's idea that we look at what is minimally needed to keep the buildings from falling into a greater state of disrepair so that we don't have more work later. But I also don't support doubling the budget and would look to wait for a more competitive environment in which to move forward. I think this is a want and not a need, and to be bidding once during a time when there are needs, we're going to end up costing more than we should in the long run.
Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am curious, the different partners that was listed in the slide, have they contributed anything, or are they just for the listed as sake of potential partners, or?
We have a few that have contributed financially. We have Spees Bees that has donated money to build a bee exhibit. We have the Sacramento County Farm Bureau has given us a check to sponsor an exhibit also. We have the California State Parks that is donating all the furnishings for the house. So that is a donation in kind, not a monetary value, but it's valued at about $30,000. So we have some. As far as the longevity and the operational cost, that's something we're seeking for future partners. We've also written 2 grants, each of which is for $10,000, and we're waiting to hear in December whether those have been awarded.
I was particularly interested in the contributions of Elk Grove Unified School District. Nothing?
Well, yes and no. I'm technically an employee of Elk Grove Unified School District, and I've been on loan to this regional SAM project for the past year and a half. So they've donated that, as well as all of my office expenses. And then many of our high school career tech programs have donated the supplies and labor to build a lot of those things that you saw on the slideshow. So
correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there an Elk Grove Educational Foundation established by the school district?
I'm going to let Kathy Hamilton, she's the director of Elk Grove Unified School District's Career Tech Department.
Thank you. With regards to the Elk Grove Scholarship Foundation, yes, there is an Elk Grove Scholarship Foundation.
That's for a separate purpose, yeah. Okay.
And as far as I know, we have not done any outreach yet to that organization. I think the PowerPoint, the presentation by Patty and Jason today probably needs to have a wider audience. It's a suggestion I would make.
Okay. My thoughts here is this is something that's so vitally important for our community. Certainly for this particular dairy farm, which has a significant place in the history of Elk Grove and also this whole region. I think it is something that is certainly worth paying closer attention to. My concerns really is consistent with what Director Harris had mentioned. The cost is a little bit surprising as what I would have expected. I don't know, is there a thought with fellow directors as to maybe phasing this along the lines of what Director Hume had suggested in terms of, maybe starting a foundation or going along those lines? I think that would make some logical sense, but to balance that with the possibility of not putting the effort into it, and by the time we are prepared to do anything, it's have fallen apart, and so I think that would be a tremendous loss to the community as well. I don't know whether this question needs to go to somebody else, but phasing it so that we have an approved budget, we can initiate the process, but at the same time having a foundation that will continually raise money to address the whole facility as a whole.
Like the phasing? Mm-hmm.
So I can address the phasing question. We can divert funds from Sims Ranch towards Nicholas Dairy. That's one thing we can do. But then you run into the risk of Sims Ranch continuing to deteriorate. There's 8 structures at Sims Ranch, 3 at Nicholas Dairy. So that helps reflect why the cost is so high. It's not just one structure. There's 11 of them. And they are historical, so we need specialty contractors. They have to follow all of the regulations when dealing with lead paint and asbestos, and that brings the cost up as well.
So let's assume that we pause for a moment and wait until the environment is right. How many years will that be? 5, 10?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's
your best estimate, right?
I don't know.
Give me an idea, because people who are watching this, constituents will be asking.
Let me offer some comments. My department over the last 4 or 5 years has issued a lot of bids for construction, Echo Water, plant rehab, interceptor rehab, and we have been very, very fortunate for the last 4 or 5 years that the bidding climate has been exceptional for us. Our bids have come in tens of millions of dollars below the engineer's estimate, even through filtration early this year. However,
and I'll reflect what was comments made by Director Harris, the climate has changed, and we know that very directly. We are still bidding projects, but I've had to cancel some because they're just too high. So the discretionary projects we've either had to rebid, repackage, or cancel. To your question, everybody is busy right now, and we heard already we're competing with projects at different levels. From the wastewater side of things, we're competing with Bay Area projects and water projects, so we're lucky we got the Echo Water projects in. From this type of project, we're competing, from what we already heard, the fires. There's a lot of construction up north and will be for years. So based on my experience, the bidding climate, it's going to take a number of years for the contractors to absorb the work to get done that's already out there. So it's my guess it's going to be a handful of years before the bidding climate gets better, is my guess.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Director Roscoe.
Thank you. I'm not going to reiterate a lot of the comments from my colleagues, but I do appreciate them very much. I just wanted to comment on another aspect, and I do agree with Director Hume's analysis with the respect to the nexus to regional sanitation. I was looking for that as well. But moreover, one thing that did strike me was that there was going to be a rollout that was on a limited basis specifically to Elk Grove Unified, and I think that there could be a better opportunity for us to consider options to be a little bit more equitable within the region, because there are a lot of kids throughout the region who don't have access to rural educational opportunities and could really appreciate that. And I like the focus to disadvantaged youth specifically. I know how resource intensive it is for kids to participate in FFA programs or other types of opportunities that give them experiences outside of their normal environment. And a lot of those are limited to schools that have rural components or are located in a rural area. So I'd really like to see us consider, once we consider what improvements can be made, thinking about how to roll out and reach people throughout the region instead of just in this isolated area.
That's definitely the plan, as you heard from Patty. Elk Grove is only a pilot, so that we can fine-tune the programs and then offer it to the entire service area.
No, I heard that.
Yeah.
And with all due respect, Prabhakar, that's fine. But why couldn't kids in Yolo County or West Sacramento or in South Sacramento, outside of just the Elk Grove Unified School District, benefit through the pilot as well?
Even the pilot?
Yeah, we could
We can certainly look into that. We will certainly look into that to see if there's other schools that we can go to and grab folks from some other districts with your thoughts here.
Great.
Director Carr.
Thank you, Chair. The question before us is whether we should repurpose the budget, change the budget for the project from 125 to 2.5 million. And there have been some discussion about walking away from it at this point and waiting for the climate to get better, the contracting climate to get better. I tend to agree with Ruben that after seeing the devastation in Santa Rosa and Napa, it's going to be a while before the climate gets better for contracting. What I don't understand is, what is the impact if we try to seal this up and wait for better days, which may be 5, 10 years from now? How much deterioration will we see, or how much more do we have to invest to get to a point where what we've already invested is not deteriorating?
I think we can preserve the structures within the budget that we have. I think what will be we have to put on pause is the programming. Really, the educational element of it, especially because we got to do the interior part of the building, which the Nicholas House we haven't done yet. We're doing the outside. We don't need to do the interior as long as we don't have the programming in there. So basically, buildings we can preserve with the existing budget, but we can't offer anything for the students until we do the additional work on the chicken coop and the interior work, or the additional work in the dairy that need to happen, or even the interior work in the Nicholas Dairy house. So those things is the one where you have the additional budget that's going towards. So if it's the board's will, we can just stabilize these both structures. They will be fine with the budget that we have, but we can't offer any educational things. Probably most of them we wouldn't be able to offer. That's a delay.
Within the budget that we have, we could seal it up and walk away and wait for 10 years and see if prices have gone down.
That's essentially what the hope is.
Yeah. Thanks.
Director Natoli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just say I'm certainly very appreciative of the comments of my fellow directors, but there's a lot of momentum behind this project, and I think it's been clear that I certainly feel very strongly about it from the standpoint of what this can offer to the community. And, you know, we often see in projects with, you know, public dollars, we certainly need to be very cognizant of that and, you know, maintain, you know, the prudent approach. But in my view, you know, there was a lot of kind of postponed, deferred maintenance, not unlike what occurs in a lot of public arenas. Here's an opportunity to take this through to the conclusion, to do it right. Certainly we can, you know, as I think staff has, you know, look at those windows where we might get opportunities to continue to partner to, you know, shave costs. But I don't think it's practical from my perspective to, you know, wait 5 years or 10 years and lose momentum. You've got partners that are, you know, waiting in the wings, but the asset belongs to the district. If we once preserve that and do it right, and then have the, you know, the motivation behind it to continue to maintain it, but also then all the program that goes with it, it seems to me that we have a real jewel here. And I, for one, am very, very supportive of going forward. Certainly, you know, watching our costs, I think district staff has been very cognizant of that and very attentive to that. And I just think that, you know, we're at a crossroads here, and we can either decide to, you know, complete what's been started to the degree that we kind of board it up and let it set and wait and see what happens, or we go forward. And I think the prospects for the region are great. To Mr. Roscoe's point, I think that, you know, in developing a pilot, there's tremendous opportunity here. And again, it's not like we're putting money into something and throwing it away. We're fixing up buildings and assets that we have. We can preserve and protect them, and we can use them and repurpose them. And I think that's the opportunity that's presented to us today. And I'm prepared to make a motion to support the staff recommendation, which would increase the budget, recognizing that there's been certainly clear comments about trying to find economies when we can, but let's do it and do it right. And I would offer a motion. It's a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, but we have more people that want to speak to the motion now. Director Cerna.
Thank you. So I appreciate Supervisor Natoli's comments. I certainly respect and understand the concerns been expressed by my colleagues this morning. The one thing that the perspective I'm looking at this from, in addition to the dynamics of the market for this particular kind of construction and rehab, is the fact that if we wait 10 years, you're missing the 2.5 generations of elementary school kids. And so there's a real, if you want to call it an opportunity cost here involved in terms of its intended benefit from an educational standpoint that I think deserves some consideration, and that's why I'm happy to support the motion.
Director Guerra.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I kind of follow in line, I think, with Director Natoli's comments here. I am kind of perplexed about the cost of the bids, and the question becomes: at what point do we have the alternatives of waiting to find a good time to do this? And I don't know if there's an option of fixing the what we need now while we pursue the foundation piece or whatnot, but maybe that's an alternative, or I don't know if there's something that the staff could come back with that if this motion passes. But, you know, having gone through both, you know, 4-H and FFA, and you know, at that time, being a kid of a very little means and understanding the values of husbandry, that is a huge impact on a person's life. And, you know, now that I represent an area that's much more urban and suburban to that effect, there's I think a a piece of Sacramento's history that we're losing because we've lost a lot of those programs. We don't have a lot of FFA programs. Elk Grove, I think, has 2 programs now, and I think there's 1 in Rancho. But most of our ag programs that expose the kids to about this kind of history have been lost. So I have a concern about waiting up to 10 years. I want to be extremely sensitive to the cost of this, because if the cost is additional $1 million, that's an additional $1 million we are not putting towards programming for the kids. So and I think that's the balance here that I'm hoping that there might be, if there's another colleague here that has a better idea of how do we look at this bid aspect, because I'm not in the contracting business, but I also don't want to lose a unique opportunity that I've known so many people benefited from, from raising hogs to whatever, in this realm. So, I think I'd probably support the motion, but I'd like to see if there's any other options or any other ideas in between from just waiting to what we have on the table.
Director Hume.
Thank you, Chair. Before I opine on the motion on the table, I want to first clarify that the motion is to go from the $1.35 million to a $2.5 million budget?
Correct.
Okay.
Staff recommendation.
And then a question of staff is, I recall in the presentation, you mentioned a lot of the reasons for the higher than expected costs were due to the environmental concerns, the lead paint, asbestos, et cetera. And that one of the things was going to be looked at was bifurcating that out and have a specialty contractor perform those tasks, and then kind of have the simpler tasks bidded in a separate contract.
Correct.
Is that informed in that $2.5 million budget? Or is that still an unknown of how much cost savings that would lend?
So at Sims Ranch, that was the plan, to remove the hazardous material work from the main scope of work. That contractor who bid on that does not typically do that work, so those costs were inflated significantly. We do have a contractor on call at the plant who can do that work, and we do expect it to be less. I don't know the exact number, but we did request $550,000 for Sims Ranch, which should be plenty to stabilize all 8 structures as well as address the hazardous material.
And so that would be $550,000 instead of the $270 or so that was originally requested. And all of that is within this $2.5 million
Correct.
figure. Okay, so if I can, I would offer up something, and I understand there's a motion on the table to be voted upon, but I would offer up sort of an interim solution if the idea of waiting for a different bidding environment doesn't suit the board. I think the idea of offloading the oversight of this project to an independent foundation separate from the district still holds merit. I would be willing to spearhead that exploration. I know many of the partners that were listed on that slide. I know some of the local Elk Grove foundations and also the businesses that might be willing to partner in that. And the statewide FFA office is just down the road in Galt. And so to the extent that we can capture those folks, as it was mentioned. I guess procedurally we have to vote upon the motion, but I would just
you can offer up an alternative motion.
Then I would offer up an alternative motion that we get time to explore the cost savings that might be realized by separating out aspects of the project. We get harder numbers of what is needed for short-term stabilization. I appreciate the opportunity cost related to not waiting to move forward on this, but I think that we have not fully vetted alternative delivery models, and so I would move that we do that and bring this back, date certain early part of next year.
Can I interject for a moment, too? I think that's certainly a fine idea. I will say that if public funds are being expended, which they will be in this case, there are still requirements of public contracting code and, most importantly, prevailing wages that must be paid. So that's something to consider as you're moving forward with foundation.
We did overcome them at the state of California, which is even more bureaucratic than us.
Right. Yeah, I'm just pointing that out. So you might have some cost savings, but there will be some, we've opined in the past that when public funds, and it's pretty clear in the labor code, at least for public prevailing wages, they do still need to be paid, which is like significant amount difference, so.
Toward that end, Director Guerra asked me, and I didn't have a clear response. From what color of money is this being funded?
This is a non-rate, non-fee revenue.
What I thought.
Okay, it is, okay.
This is not a ratepayer, directly ratepayer generated revenue.
Okay, Director Hume has an alternate motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Bruin. Wasn't it?
Frost.
Oh, I'm sorry, Frost, sorry. To someone to my left. All right, so let's let Director Cerna speak, and then we'll have a clarification on exactly what the motion is.
Thank you. Question, has staff explored asking the army of contractors working on our project whether or not there's any room whatsoever for donated labor, donated expertise that could, if, across the whole breadth of trades, could incrementally reduce the cost. They're obviously very busy doing what they're contracted to do.
Yeah.
But they're also benefiting quite a bit from that work, and I'm just wondering whether or not that's been exhausted, and if not, why not?
Yeah. So on the contractors that are working on the Echo Water, they're largely different type of contractors than who's working here. These are more residential, more commercial, small scale type contractors that are coming in, which is where the bidding climate is worse. The smaller end of the jobs is where you're getting really killed on the street. Right. So the bigger guys, our bigger guys, that's not the kind of expertise.
I understand, yeah. But I'm going to guess that you probably have a couple GCs that are working on the project.
Oh, more than a couple,
yeah,
on the Echo Water.
And like Director Harris mentioned, I don't have the depth of expertise he does, but as someone that did work in the construction field for a number of years in his youth, I know that general contractors do quite a bit. It's not just a very narrow band of, rough framing or, cabinetry work or painting or electrical. You're basically able to perform what you're licensed to do. And so, yes, I think maybe it's easy to dismiss the fact that the scales of these two different projects are night and day. But it seems to me there's, rightfully so, a great deal of sensitivity to the budget adjustment up here. And if that hasn't been exhausted, I think it should. I think we ought to ask that question, given the fact that this board is expressing very clearly today that sensitivity. And, to Director Guerra's question about or interest in hearing ideas, I throw that out there. And then lastly, before we hear from others or get to a vote here, I would just ask if Director Hume really intended to do a substitute motion, or is he interested in amending the existing the first motion?
With respect to Director Hume's idea, if it's board's wish to continue to authorize up to the amount, and then we can work on in parallel in terms of a foundation, then we can always move this money and then move the work under the foundation.
That's why I'm asking for the clarification.
Yeah, no, we definitely would explore that. I don't see especially given now that this is a winter, and we got some work that's going on, so we have to wait through some of the work. So we can explore that. So you can take, if that's your wish, to take the motion and Director Natoli, and up to the maximum budget, and then we'll work through the foundation, and if we can do it cheaper, we can move the money, and we'll come back to the board and say, well, this is going to the foundation, here's amounts, and here's the terms under which we're going to do that. That definitely is feasible.
And I can appreciate that parallel path. I'm not comfortable almost doubling the budget, I guess, is what it comes down to. And so I'd like to sort of exhaust other explorations before I would be willing to authorize that.
Well, that's the thing, is procedurally, the staff recommendation is so narrow. It just basically just doubles the budget. So to offer a friendly amendment to that would be very difficult to do.
Well, if as Brocker described it, that would be a friendly amendment. But Director Hume that's not where his motion lies, or substitute motion. So, but if that was offered as an amendment to, as Prabhakar described it, to have a budget, recognizing, bring it in under budget if you can. You know, that would be the goal, but.
Well, and then maybe even more nuanced, doing as I suggested. And
Explore other ways. I mean, it does not preclude us from exploring other ways.
But we don't
You're
stall
only
out.
authorizing a limit, not the total to be.
the mandated, you're not mandating the appropriation.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in partnering on that piece of it, that you basically offer the maximum, and then, but you take these other ideas that have been offered, both by Director Hume and by Director Cerna and others, I would be comfortable with that.
Definitely explore that.
I'm kind of wondering, I mean, just looking at this, the Regional San recommends that your board increases the Sims Ranch and Nicholas Dairy budget from 1.25 million to 2.5 million. And there have been so many requests for changes on this, I have absolutely no idea what I'd be voting on. So could someone clarify that for me?
I will restate the motion, which is essentially to table this until a springtime, March, April meeting date, and to explore other options of cost savings and delivery methods, and then come back with the item back on the table for board approval.
Second.
So we still have a substitute motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion? And we haven't taken public comment. Director Guerra.
Just a question here. Does the current budget authorization still stand? Is from what I understanding that what we've authorized, that can continue on until we figure out this other conversation. Is that correct, Prabhakar?
Yeah, yes.
And that's a good question because, as you know, Director Natoli said that we don't need to stall it out. I don't see where this stalls it out.
That becomes a sunk cost, right?
Any other?
So which motion's on
The substitute motion.
in advance of the main motion?
Yes. According to Robert's rules, is there anyone in the public that would like to make a comment? Questions? I don't have any cards.
To table it.
All right, then we will take the substitute motion first, and we will do a roll call vote.
I'm sorry.
And the motion's to table it?
Director Bruins? Aye.
Hang on,
Carr?
I'm sorry. Director Natoli, could you one more time?
Yeah, so the motion on the table would be to continue with the original budget of 1.35 million and to table the increase until a date in the spring when we can come back with more informed information about potential cost savings and alternate delivery methods up to and including the formation of a foundation charged with advancing the project.
Okay, and if we could restart the roll call vote, please.
Director Bruins? Aye. Carr?
No.
Frost?
Aye.
Guerra?
No.
Harris?
Aye.
Hume?
Aye.
Lee?
No.
McGarvey?
No.
Moran?
No.
Natoli?
No.
Orozco?
Aye.
Peters?
Aye.
Cerna?
No.
Villegas? Kennedy?
No. All right, then we have the original motion on the.
Did it
I believe.
fail, or-
Did it fail? My math in my head said it did, but I'm a lawyer.
Yes. It
Okay.
failed.
What was the vote?
9 to...
9 what? 9 aye or no?
9 noes.
Okay.
And how many ayes?
6.
6.
Yeah. Okay. We still have the original motion on the floor by Director Natoli, seconded by Director Cerna for staff recommendation. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Chair, I only had one question here about this.
All right.
From bidding issues, if we only got one bid, does that pose any problems for us? I mean, in contracting out, have we ever had that where we just get one bid and we accept it?
We can. I mean, what we do is we offer, if we only get one bid, we make a determination whether we want to offer at that price or we rebid it, and we've done that. And I'm going to let Lisa
And isn't
answer.
it true that the bid you received, you didn't award it, and you're not planning on awarding it, are you?
No, we're
Right.
not planning.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to
So they're going to rebid it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
Yeah.
Okay, before we take a vote on that, Director Cerna.
So as the seconder of the motion, I'd like to offer just a nuance-friendly amendment to the maker of the motion to my point about specifically working with our eco-water contractors to see if there's any prospect of them
Supporting
helping us
this.
reduce our cost.
Yes.
Let me offer some comments on that as we explore, because we have to think it through carefully. All our contracts, whether it's EcoWater or rehabilitation, have very specific work in the scope of work. So it would not be done through the contract. It would basically be voluntary work that these folks offer. A lot of these contracts, we are having to work with a contractor for change orders. So for example, if there was a design error, if there was something added to the project, if we missed something, there's a negotiated process to come to agreement on that change order. We need to make sure that if we ask these contractors for some free labor, it does not affect our process to discuss and agree on change orders, and what ultimately, in some cases, frankly, could be litigation. So as we think through this, we have to be very cautious of that, because we're basically coming to the contractors and asking them for free help. That's my comment.
And if you had a foundation, they
We'll
could go
definitely
ask
explore that.
the main company.
Yeah.
So is that the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Accepted? Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. Does everybody understand it as it is? All right, please call the roll.
Bruins?
No.
Carr?
I really didn't get that amendment.
Okay?
Restate it.
It's simple. It's to have staff in the meantime work with our contractors for the Eco Water project to see if there's any prospect of donated labor.
Explore
to
that,
reduce
yeah.
to explore it to reduce the cost.
And staff say they could do that carefully.
Yeah.
Aye.
Frost?
No.
Guerra?
Aye.
Harris? Oh. Hume?
No.
Lee?
I'm sorry, you said Lee? Aye.
McGarvey?
I will say yes, but I have to admit I'm still not clear on it, so.
Moran?
Yes.
Natoli?
Aye.
Orozco?
Aye.
Peters?
No.
Cerna?
Aye.
Villegas? Yes. And Kennedy?
Aye.
Ten yeses.
Okay.
Motion passes.
All right, next item, please.
Item number 7 is the acting as your Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District and Sacramento Area Sewer District, district separate matters, miscellaneous director and district engineer matters.
Just a couple of quick notes. This is the last meeting for this year. We will not have any more meetings next month. So our next meeting is January 9th. So if we don't see you before that, have a prosperous holidays and safe and joyous holidays. But I do want to take a moment. This is the last meeting for Director Morin. He's leaving us, so we would like to recognize with him with this little present. And if the Chair and Director Morin come down here. And
Prabhakar, we're going to lose someone, so can we first get consent and then we can hit that?
Okay, so this would end the regional SAM. So really only we have is SASG. Just
Yeah, but we have members of both who.
Okay, sure.
concerned.
Let's go ahead and finish the SASG then.
Let's do that real quickly. So we're at SASG for consent matters. Are there any questions, comments?
Let me just add one thing on item 11. I distributed a small revision in the code. There's just an error that was caught. So you have it in front of you. And also the clerk and the council has a copy as well. Just it's a minor edit.
Okay, is there a motion on consent for SASD?
I move consent.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Now we will go down and...
Everybody can leave.
So Andy, I'm getting used to doing this. But I will say, one thing that I have learned with working with Andy on the variety of boards that we serve on is that he's one of those guys that he doesn't talk a lot, he doesn't say much, but he's like E.F. Hutton. When he does, people listen. And that's not only because of your experience, but also your level-headedness, your even keel, and your respect for the people who are here and the respect for the people that are up there that you always demonstrate. So I thank you. I wish you the best. And this isn't going to be the last time I do this either. So,
great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Making a decision not to run is really difficult, and to not run for Folsom City Council was tough. But one of the reasons it's tough is just the joy I've had in sitting on these regional boards and commissions, and really realizing the caliber of elected officials in this region, but specifically here, the caliber of this agency, and the people that have just done so much work here. And I filled in for Carrie. I don't know how long ago was that? 2 years ago, maybe.
3 years.
3 years. Wow, time flies. But who knows who will be returning here from the city of Folsom, but this was an unexpected privilege for me to be moved into this board and really learn about the competence of this agency, but again, just a reaffirmation of the quality of elected officials in this region. And as much as I'm going to miss being a direct participant in this region, boy, I feel good about this region going forward, this agency and this region. So thank you, Patrick, for those kind words. And it has been a true pleasure getting to know each and every one of you, not only on this board, but others as well. So thank you very much. And I will not miss driving down here, but I am sure I will have opportunities to run into you folks in the future. So thanks again. Thanks, Patrick.
Can't stand next to me, though.
Hey, Andy, is that a clock or a barometer?
It's a clock. It's a broken barometer. It's right twice a day.
That's perfect.
Nice. Yeah, it's nice. Oh, great. Thank you, Prabhakar.
Okay, Madam Clerk, where are we at? We've moved things around.
Communications received and filed, items 12 and 13.
Great. Then with that, we will stand adjourned.
Sure.